we supposed to click? All right. We'll probably give it just a few more seconds, maybe another 30 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and start. I see people trickling in, but I think we'll go ahead and start now. Hello, everyone. My name is Ricky Armand, and I have the pleasure of being the moderator on this amazing panel. We'd like to have a discussion centered on each panelist's experience at Vermont Law School, followed by Q&A from the audience at the end. I hope everyone's okay with me saying Vermont Law School. Okay, we do VLGS, but all of us here on the panel, while we were attending Vermont Law, that's what it was. It was Vermont Law School, VLS. So I hope it's okay with everyone if I say VLS and Vermont Law School. So before we jump into the questions, I'll just have each panelist introduce themselves, and you can just tell us your name, tell us where you're from, your graduating year, what you currently do, and then any fun or interesting fact you'd like to share about yourself. So we'll start with Miss Edna.
Thank you, Ricky. I'm Edna Baugh. I am the class of 1983. I'm originally from New Jersey, but I have retired and now reside in Florida. I practiced law in several different areas, but when I retired as the Superintendent of Elections and Commissioner of Registration for Essex County, New Jersey.
Awesome. What about you, Miss Lori?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Anthony, class of 97. I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I currently live in Cincinnati. I currently, and for a while, have been the section chief of civil rights in the Ohio Attorney General's office. And before that, I worked for 4 years out of law school at Legal Aid of Greater Cincinnati. Interesting fact, I'm a long suffering, emphasis on suffering, Cleveland Browns fan.
That's okay. That's all right. So we'll go in chronological order. Since I'm class of 2012, I'll go next. As I mentioned before, my name is Ricky Armand. I'm actually originally from Connecticut. I was born in Connecticut. I moved down to South Florida around 7 years old. So I grew up in Florida. My graduating year is 2012. Like I mentioned, I'm currently a partner at a civil litigation firm, doing plaintiff's work. And fun or interesting fact, I'm married for 13 years. Been together with her for 19 years this month, my wife, and we have three amazing children, Russell, Ryan, and Reagan. Their ages are 11, 9, and 3. And so, Fito, last but certainly not least, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Happy Martin Luther King Day, first and foremost. My name is Fito Magic Andre. I am a graduate of class of 2022. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, so go Hurricanes today. I'm currently residing in San Antonio, Texas, where I'm stationed at Lackland Air Force Base. I'm an assistant judge advocate, which means I'm one of the prosecutors at the base legal office here at Lackland Air Force Base. Interesting fact, Ricky is actually one of my mentors, and he's one of the reasons why I went to Vermont Law School, which is now known as Vermont Law and Graduate School. But that's me.
Awesome, awesome. Now, Edna and Lori, you see how Fito had to show us out and start off by referencing Dr. K, Dr. MLK, right? Great job, Fito. No, I'm teasing you. Great job. Today is the day that we honor Dr. King, and a quote that was shared with me earlier today. I'll read it. It's from Dr. MLK Jr. Education must enable a man to become more efficient, to achieve with increasing facility the legitimate goals of his life. And so, just on that note, Edna, I'd just like to start with you. What brought you to Vermont Law School? You're originally from New Jersey, like you said, and so, you're pursuing furthering your education, going to law school. Why Vermont?
Well, I guess the answer to that question is I applied to two law schools. One put me on the wait list, and Vermont offered me a place in the class of 19 that started in 79. But I asked for a deferment, so I didn't start until 1980. So that's how I ended up in Vermont. Um, and since I talked about the other law school that put me on the wait list, it ended up that after I finished at Vermont and passed the bar and started working, I ended up working in the clinic in the law school that didn't offer me a seat in the class.
Uh,
A little ironic, I
yeah,
guess.
interesting. Yeah, and and we won't name them here. We only care about Vermont law here. Okay.
We won't name them.
Okay. So 1980 is when you arrived on campus. Okay, so you are one of the original trailblazers, you know.
Right.
So
My,
take us back to 1980. Um,
1980, I traveled up to Vermont to visit, to interview, um, and drove into South Royalton, drove around the green looking for what I, in my mind, thought should be what a law school building should look like. Didn't see one, drove back out of town, made a U-turn in the gas station across the intersection, came back, and then saw the classroom building, what is now the Devereux Hall, and realized that that was the law school, and went in and had an interview. Uh, our campus looked much different when I was there than it does now. There was really only Devereux Hall, the building that's now, I think, that houses the cafeteria and the lounge, uh, was our library. And we only had the office building, when you're facing Devereux Hall to the right, we only had the office building. We didn't have the classroom building that's there, nor did we have the nice, gorgeous library that we have now, or the phys ed facility that we've also added. So much smaller campus. There were some outlying buildings, where the maintenance staff worked out of, and there was the building across the street that housed the clinic. So we had some smaller outbuildings, but the heart of the campus was just really Devereux Hall and the library and the faculty office buildings when I was there.
Okay, so magic question I gotta ask. Speaking of what was there and what wasn't there, how many other African Americans were there?
I was it. I was the only person of color on campus when I arrived in 1980. And in 1981, I was joined by VP Jefferson, who came the year, my second year she started. I understand there was one African American who preceded me, and now the numbers have increased several fold. But it was not, I didn't feel uncomfortable being the only person of color at
Really?
the law school or at in South Royalton. What I was more concerned about when I started at VLS is that I was going to be the oldest person. I was 10 years out of undergrad before I went to law school.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was concerned that I was going to be the old person on campus, but it turned out there were at least one, two, three, four other students who were
Wow.
multiple years out of undergrad who were going to law school. So I was not alone in
Okay.
that respect.
Awesome. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about your experience then, your experience with faculty, staff, any classmates. You were the only one. Did you have any, negative experiences? Were they all positive? Take us back a little bit.
I didn't have any negative experiences, and I've always said this, if anyone, any resident of South Royalton and or any classmate had something to say with respect that I was the only person of color, I never heard it. Everyone in the community that I ran into said hello. They may have talked about me like a dog behind closed doors, but never in public. And I never heard an offensive statement made to my face while I was there.
Awesome. And what about people in the community? Grocery shopping, getting hair done, nails done. I mean, how was that like?
Hair done, I went back to New Jersey for that, to get my hair done because I was unaware of anyone who could handle my hair in that. Didn't encounter any problems going grocery shopping down in Lebanon, going to any of the stores in South Royalton. I didn't have any problems.
Awesome. Okay. Um, One of the things that I wanted to ask you about that came up just in some of our other discussions, these days in 2026, and I sound old now saying that these days, because back in my day, right, these days there's AI, right? ChatGPT, Claude, and Lexus is using AI, Westlaw is using AI, Google has AI. How was doing, legal research back in 1980?
Called books on the shelf. Um, we did legal research by using books. I want to say, was it our second year? Westlaw was just kind of coming into being, and there was one computer in the library behind the desk that two things, you had to sign up to be able to use it, and B, you had to be trained to use it to be able to do legal research on the computer. Other than that, we went to the shelves. A couple of times people experience occasion where a book that they needed to use wasn't on the shelf. It had walked away or disappeared or wasn't where it was supposed to be. But most of the time, whatever you needed to use was there. But computers were just coming into favor in the early 80s.
Okay, interesting. Wow. There's just things that we're so accustomed to today, right? I mean, you can't find someone not staring at their phone these days.
Hmm.
So just to even hear you say your second year Westlaw was coming into fruition, right? Like for us, it's so second nature. If you're going to do legal research, it's either Westlaw or LexisNexis, you know?
Exactly.
So that's so interesting. I want to ask you one more question, Edna, then I'll move on to Lori. I'm just curious. Dean Jefferson arrived on campus your second year.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I knew her as Dean Jefferson. I'm sorry. Now she's VP Jefferson. Um, Now, VP Jefferson always claimed to be shy. When you met her back in 1981, was she really shy? I just want to know, how was VP Jefferson back in 1981, 82 when you knew her?
I don't know. She says she's shy. She and I got along, and I believe she got along well with her classmates. Um, she actually, over one break, came home with me to New Jersey. Um, and I will say this, I've reached out to have her travel with me to New Jersey for obvious reasons, so that we could hang out in the hood, for lack of a better description. But I didn't get the sense that she was shy. I wouldn't say she was outgoing and overly gregarious, but she was friendly. I wouldn't describe her as shy. And
Okay.
I know her. See, the problem is, you know her as Dean Jefferson. I know her as Shirley. I have to remember where I am when I use her name as to which name I'm going to use.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I did say that was the last question, but I do want to sneak one more in there. Just how has your experience at VLS shaped your path after graduation?
Hmm.
Whether in your legal career or just in life in general.
Well, I guess it has shaped my path in life in general because it was a different atmosphere for me to live in over 3 years. I came from New Jersey, metropolitan New York area, just across the river from NYC. So it was a different vibe. It was quieter. But I have to admit, candidly, growing up, my parents were from farming country in the South, and I spent summers down there. So being in Vermont was a little bit of a reminder of what it was like being, in the South in the summers. Um, but I would not trade my experience at VLS for anything else at this point. I would not trade it.
Awesome. Awesome. I could say the same. Lori,
Hi there.
how are you?
Good.
Awesome. Awesome. So you arrived coming from, was it Cincinnati or Cleveland? Cincinnati.
Cleveland. Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Come on, man. Cleveland.
Cleveland. Sorry. From Cleveland, you arrived in Sorrow in 1994.
Yep.
So tell us how that was like. How many African Americans were in your class? I mean, how was it when you got there?
It was it was not Cleveland. Um, I I'm going to take a half a step back and say I went to visit before, so I knew what I was getting into, and I wanted to be someplace like Vermont. I love New England, and my theory was if I'm going to go through this for 3 years, I want to be someplace where it's feels comfortable and just um, not in. I was looking for not a big city, so um, yeah, eyes wide open. Um, it was fine. I never had any incidents that I can, at least that I can remember now, where I personally felt um, that someone was trying to intimidate or hurt or say harmful things or whatever because of my race. I know that I think there were two of us in my class. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but I think there were two Black students in my class. When I was there was a total, I think our high water mark was 6 Black students across the years MSEL program. And I would say same thing that Edna said. I didn't feel unsafe. I rode my bike a lot. I didn't feel unsafe riding my bike around Soro or even going up, into some of the back roads. I didn't feel unsafe. I felt perfectly fine doing that. I do think that there was a bit of a blind spot when it came to making sure that all points of view were considered or used in hypotheticals and reading and discussions. And I say that because when I was there was when the OJ verdict came out.
Oh, wow, wow.
And I was evidence class. And I can remember some students asking about it in class, and it was addressed, but then kind of like, well, we don't want to go there. We don't want to, go too far in that rabbit hole, which on some level I can absolutely understand. You don't want the class taken away from you because you're chasing this, hypothetical to someplace that we need not be going. But I think that was a missed opportunity. And when that verdict came out, I can remember that there was a hastily called community discussion planned in the fireside lounge. Is that what it was called? By the bookcases, fireplace. Anyway, whatever iteration of it is now, that's where it was. And we came in, there was a lot of emotion, as everyone knows, when that verdict came out. There was a lot of emotion, there was a lot of outrage. There was a lot of relief. There was a lot, the emotions were all over. The display of the emotions were all over. And I just remember going into that lounge area, and all of us Black students kind of just found our way to be sitting at the same table. And it was a bit uncomfortable, not because I felt like somebody was going to harm us or anything like that, but because the outrage was taken away from exactly what we were being taught to do, which is communicate, think critically. How is the system supposed to work? What does a jury verdict do? What is the standard? Was that standard met? And there were some comments made in that venting discussion by students and professors that kind of took us out of that phase. And it was pure outrage and dissatisfaction. And while a lot of us candidly shared that for various reasons, it was a little jarring to be a student and to be in training to walk into the world with this degree and knowing that you are part of, quote unquote, the system, and the system is being entrusted to you. So that was a very memorable occasion. I believe that we, the Black students, we were in Balsa, we kind of talked about it afterwards, and we were all kind of on the same page with it. We were outraged too. There were all sorts of things going on, but I say that was only because that was a very interesting moment for me as a law student. But it didn't it didn't dampen my enthusiasm. It didn't dampen my relationships with my fellow students at all. But, especially in hindsight, looking at it now, it's like, wow, that really was, that was significant. That
Yeah.
was, that was significant.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I think the verdict came out in 95, maybe. And so that's a little over 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
20 21 years ago. Um, so it's been a while. I am interested in asking, I'm very curious to know. So if we go back to that time, did you realize like this was history, being like this was going to be such a profound, significant moment? You're studying, you're in law school, you're, maybe
Right.
stressed, maybe not sleeping a lot,
Right.
and then, I don't know how much of the trial you were even following. Then the verdict comes out, you fast forward now and there's so many documentaries, so
Right.
much commentary on it. But at that moment in 95, did you know it was going to be what it has become?
I can't speak for my classmates, but I gotta say that, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say I knew how big it was gonna be and that there's gonna be all these miniseries and books and I don't mean it like that, but I knew that it was significant. Yes, and part of that, and this kind of, to go full circle here, part of that was from lived experiences. Part of that was from looking at the justice system in a perspective, from a perspective that I wasn't really hearing a lot about. Um, Again, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or anything, but just fact. And so, I mean, I can remember watching, if some of you may, some of us may be old enough to recall that there was a lot of, there was a lot of run up to that trial, right? There were evidentiary hearings on TV. There were arguments on TV. There was jury selection. There were arguments that, and so I was following it before law school happened. Um, and, you know, yeah, I did have a sense that, yeah, this is huge. This is huge. You got the former football star. It was too early then to see how all of the pieces would fit together. Um, that's also when domestic violence we became more aware, and I think better as a country in acknowledging it and spotting it and trying to address it. So it was too early to see how all those pieces were going to fit together. But yeah, I did have a sense that it was big. It was huge. It was huge.
Wow. You talked about your experience at VLS, mostly positive. This was a very interesting event that took place while you were there. Um, how has your experience overall shaped your path after graduation, whether professionally or even personally?
Well, I would agree with Edna. I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, I I enjoyed my time. It seems odd. I mean, some of the law students might be listening and thinking, "What do you mean you enjoyed law school?" I enjoyed my time at VLS. You'll get through it. You'll get through it. We're all here. There's light. You'll get through it. We're on the other side. Join us soon. Um, yes, I enjoyed my time. How has it shaped me? It gave me opportunities to interact with people from different perspectives, um, and it help develop some critical thinking skills. Um, I can remember having some very interesting discussions with people on the issue of civil rights, the field I'm in now, um, that were like, "Why do you say that?" And we had conversations about it. And it's like, okay, I don't agree with you. I understand you. I see where you're coming from. Didn't see that before. I see what you're saying. We're going to have to agree to disagree on certain relevant aspects of that, which we did, and it was fine. So it was an opportunity to engage with people, um, and discuss things with people who are willing to discuss things. and talk about the why and talk about the where did that come from and talk about, well, what has your experience been? How did you get here? So um, I that may happen anywhere, but sometimes it's just you don't know. It's just special. And VLS was just VLGS, but for me it was VLS. Was it was just special. It was a special community. It was close knit. Um, it was just special. It was a special time.
I don't know
And
if I asked you what brought you there from Ohio.
I wanted to be in New England. Um, I heard about it, like, oh, there's a law school in Vermont. Um, I I did not go to law school right out of college either. I taught for 4 years. I got a master's. And right around that time is when things in the world started happening and some things in my family started happening. And I decided that I wanted to do something to help people who were like not, in my opinion, being heard or being seen. My parents were in a very bad car accident. My mom had to relearn how to walk, talk, all the things. And I took her to one of her appointments, and the receptionist treated her horribly until she realized that we had insurance. And then she told my mom, "Oh, you don't have to come here. You could go to our suburban office. It's fine." I'm like, that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter. I'm not okay with that. That shouldn't matter. So that's when I started getting interested in public service and in the law. And like I said, I wanted to be in New England. I heard about VLS, went and checked it out. I'm like, oh yeah, I could live here for 3 years. Not a problem.
Awesome. Awesome.
Ricky, may I ask Lori a question?
Of course. Absolutely.
Lori, I'm just curious, do you think you benefited by not going directly from undergrad to grad to law school?
Yes.
I agree.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, that's something you both actually have in common. I think Fito, you too. Now that I think about it, we'll get to you next. But wow, all three of you guys.
Yeah, I didn't nearly do anything as cool as you all. After graduating college, I worked under Ricky and another associate. But yeah, I think it is beneficial to get a different outlook on life and then go to law school and put all that together.
And we'll segue right into you, Fito. We'll elaborate a little bit. What brought you to Vermont Law School?
Yeah, so I worked at a law firm after undergrad and through undergrad. And funny enough, Ricky was one of my mentors at the law firm. Just in looking up to another African American male who was a lawyer, and who was, he seemed to have his head on straight. And I could be a testament to that he does. But he talked about just going to this law school in Vermont. I didn't even know where Vermont was geographically. I went to uh, one of those law school conferences down in Miami. Met Katie, one of the administrators, who Ricky hooked me up with, and spoke to Dean Jefferson, and I got in. They made some arrangements for me financially, and I was able to go to Vermont Law School, and it was a great time. Great time.
Awesome. Now, how many African Americans do you remember that was in your class?
There are so many of them that I can't remember. I think if I could guess, between the graduate students and the law students, I would say probably around 40 to 45 students when I was graduating. Probably could be more, but that's what I would guesstimate.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And so what was your experience like, not only with your peers, but even just faculty staff? Like, tell us about that. And was there a faculty member or staff member that was like particularly influential or
Yeah,
supportive?
yeah. My experience was great. I think I was overly involved. I know Dean Jefferson. She beat me over the head and told me not to get super involved my 1L year, and so my 2L year, I got involved in everything. I was student ambassador. I was ASP honorary mentor because I was in there so many hours of the day helping students, even when I wasn't a mentor. Um, I was on the Vermont Law, Environmental Journal, and I was a student trustee. And I became a trustee because there was another Black student the year prior, and she told me, about her experience and just um, the challenge, but also how rewarding it was to be a trustee. And so I think my experience was good in the community. I didn't go out too much in the community because I was so busy on campus with campus life. But I know there are some students who didn't have great experiences off in the outer areas like West Lebanon and so on and so forth. Um, but for me, my perspective was everyone was friendly in the community, and everyone on VLS or VGLS now was very friendly and very welcoming to me.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
then and then when you asked about some of the faculty and some of the faculty who was most influential, I would say, I would have to start from the top with VP Shirley Jefferson. Um, I think she would bring me in her office like I would say once a month just to give me a pep talk about whether it was to encourage other students or whether it was just to encourage me being homesick and so many different things. There was her, there was you know all of the deans. I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the deans from um, Dean Jefferson and her whole crew. Um, they're just I think every class that I had, I think that someone had an impact on me when it comes to a professor, whether it was Professor Firestone when he would challenge you to think outside the box, or you would give the correct answer and he would just keep going. I think that has helped me, after law school. But I think all the professors had a great impact on me.
Awesome. Now we talked about the professors. I'm just curious if there were any of the students that had an impact on you. Um, was there a student in particular that had any profound special impact on you, Fito? I'm just asking,
Yeah, so I think I know what you're hinting at. I think there was one particular student that had, a pretty good impact. It was one of my best friends, Carice, who's now my wife, my law school sweetheart. I think it was her, myself, and Robert Baker who were like the three group of Black students who would stick together. We came into law school together, and speaking of, hearing Miss Edna talking about when she came to South Royalton, Chris and we planned our trip to VLS, and we arrived at the same time. We took a taxi from Burlington, which was very taxing financially, because I don't even know if there's still Ubers, but we got there and we were like, yeah, I think we might need to go back to where we came from. We weren't ready. It was culture shock, but I think Karishi supported me from day one, and she still supports me now. So, yeah.
now I didn't even know that story, Fito. Wait a minute. I'm feeling, I did not know that. Just to give clarity for everyone, you and Carice y'all didn't grow up together or didn't know each other prior to Vermont Law School, right?
So, Chris and I, we went to a pre-law program. It was like a prep for law school, the Clio program before law school, and that's where we met. And we knew we were going to Vermont Law School together, and so we just planned our trip to come to VLS together.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. One, I did want to ask about another kind of memorable moment that you experienced, and I wanted you to flesh out a little more. I think Edna, Lori, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the three of us while we were in law school, definitely Lori and I, uh, there was a mural in the Chase Center. Was it there while you were there, Edna? I know Chase wasn't what it is now.
It was not.
Okay, it was not there. Okay. But it was there while you were there, Lori, right? So it's been there for decades. And Fito, tell us about your class, your year, it came down or got
Yeah,
cut.
yeah, it's so for all the people on the line who have gone to Chase Center, that's the place where we would have all of our main events. Students would study there. This is the place, this is the center, this is the hub of our Vermont Law School, Vermont Law and Graduate School at the time. And I would also give shout out to the class that graduated before me because they were the driving force to getting this to having this conversation start up in the classes before as well. And so it was very strange. Some of the artistic um, symbolism of Sambos and exaggerated Black people and slavery and a not a very historical from my perspective, it was more of a negative outlook. That's what some of the pictures depicted, and it was very strange to be at a law school that was very progressive, but yet had these pictures in the center of the school. And so, at the time, I was a student trustee, and so um, I think one of the challenges was I was a student trustee. I'm also a Black student, and I'm very involved in campus life. Have good relationships with the faculty and I have good relationship with the students. Um, and the board of trustees, we had to make a decision, and I was a voting member. I won't go into all the details because I can't, but I think for me, one of the interesting things is, and I could say a lot of Black people feel this way as though there's a unique weight when Black is on the agenda, right? Or issues that Black people are care about or are pushing forward for, and so even to back up thinking about like what this day is and the fact that you asked me that question is you know it was challenging for me because there was emotional labor. There's the thought of having to speak for all of the Black students, Black faculty, all the Black community. There's the criticism that you'll think that you'll get from both sides, whether you're totally left or totally right. um, there are just so many different things that I felt pressure. However, I thought the coolest thing was it was how the board not only asked me how I felt, they also asked, what was the student body's perspective of removing the mural, protecting the arts, the artist's rights, all those different things came into play. But I think the coolest part was not only about the decision that was made, it was how the decision was made, right? And I think when we think about Martin Luther King and this day, I think you know that is something that's super impressive. It's not only about some of the things that he wanted to push forward. It's about how he went about that, right? He was not only for Black people, he was for all people. And so I think VLS, and the board, they weren't only about the Black issue, about the Sambos. They're also trying to figure out how do we balance the artist's rights. And so I think that was the coolest part about being on the board and that challenge and how figuring out how to overcome the challenges that we had. And man, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Wow, that's great to hear. And we're proud of you too, Fito.
Thank you.
Lori, you had a Dr. King quote you mentioned earlier, I think is very applicable here.
Yeah, I was just, and I'm listening to Fido, and I think it just kind of tie into what he just said. Getting back to the message or I think the the expectation or the duty that we learn how to communicate with each other, that we get out of our comfort zones, we get out of our echo chambers and we learn how to do this. We learn how to talk to each other without hyperbole, without presupposing. It's also called prejudging. It's also called prejudice.
Right.
Um, but I think it is incumbent on students, because you all coming through, you are also going to be the keepers of the system that we have. And it's being tested. I don't care where you are, where you are on that spectrum of whatever the topic is. There are many. We have to learn how to communicate effectively with each other and how to listen to each other. And the quote from Dr. King that 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 comes to mind with this is, we have to learn how to live together. I'm going to say as siblings, or we're going to perish together as fools. And, Fito just told a wonderful story about a difficult conversation. That's a hot topic right there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it takes special care, and it takes a special mindset to, I'm going to do this justice. I'm going to do the people justice. I'm going to do the system justice. I'm going to do this issue justice. I'm not just going to bulldoze through and this is what needs to happen and here's why. We got to be able to talk to each other. We got to be able to listen to each other. We got to be not offended when somebody says, hey, I heard what you said. Could you say a little bit more about that? Because I don't know where that's coming from. Why do you say that? We can't be offended by that. That's somebody trying to learn,
Yeah.
trying to engage. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Edna, it sounds like you want to add something too.
No, I'm actually going to put you on the spot because, as you know, all of us were supposed to talk about ourselves. And just because you're the moderator doesn't mean you get out of
Uh,
introducing yourself, how you got to VLS, all of the questions you asked us. And so you're now on.
You got me. You got me, Edna. You got me. That was my cheat code, Fito. I agree to be the moderator, so I don't have to speak about myself. I get to ask you guys the questions. And I was looking at the clock, like, all right, we're running out of time. I guess I can't speak. Sorry. Q&A, guys, you know what I mean? But I'll share a little bit, Edna. What brought me to VLS was uh whom I affectionately call Dean J, okay, Vice President Jefferson. I grew up in Florida, like I mentioned before. I went to a law school fair in Houston. My grandmother and some family had just moved over to Houston, my aunt, and I went to a law school fair there, and that's where I met Dean Jefferson. I shared this story before, but maybe some people may not have heard it. But at the law school fair, you're going to tables that for schools that actually interest you, and I saw a African American woman say, "Hey, young man," and I turn around and look, and it's you know Dean Jefferson standing behind the Vermont Law School table. And so I didn't think she was talking to me because it said Vermont Law School, So I didn't know anything about Vermont. But she said, "No, you come here," So I approached her and she's like, how do you feel about applying to Vermont Law School?" And I said, in Florida, Vermont's not even in our vocabulary, so I didn't think about it at all, quite frankly. But she told me how it's away from distractions, it's in the mountains. And I said, and I just loved her motherly vibe, her nurturing energy. And she said, you should apply. And I said, well, how am I going to get my hair done? I don't know why that was one of the first things that I thought about. And she said that maybe you could be the barber up there. And I said, wow, this lady's been in the mountains a little too long. She's talking crazy here. Uh, but believe it or not, she was right. Long story short, I do go to VLS, and I winded up getting a pair of clippers, and I was doing my own hair, but then next thing you know, certain Bolsa students would come knocking on my door and ask me to, hook them up as well, and so I'd give it a shot, and I guess I did decent because they kept coming back. Either I did decently or it's because I just didn't charge them, so but that's how I got to Vermont Law. I think there was 7 or 9 of us in my class. Um, I'm looking at some of the comments now. Yeah, the hair struggle, it was real. Um, and I'm actually still in touch with a few of my classmates to this day. Um, 3 of which actually attended my wedding. So I graduated May of 2012 and I got married October of 2012. And some of my classmates were still there and we're still in touch to this day. So I'm so grateful that I even met lasting relationships at Vermont Law School. One memorable moment I'll share, and I was reminded about this, Lori, while we were speaking earlier, and when you mentioned the O.J. Simpson trial. February of 2012 was the tragic death of Trayvon Martin.
Mm.
So that was a few months before my class graduated. So I just remember going through that, and Bosa do having a vigil, on the green, and I do remember it was a supportive atmosphere. We had students from all over, different backgrounds still come and met with us there. And it was just a good reminder that, we're in this together. You know what I mean? It struck home for me because, I was one of the few at Vermont that came from Florida, and Trayvon Martin, that incident happened in Florida.
That's right.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Influential faculty, yes, Dean Jefferson for sure. Um, my trial practice professor, man, he was really influential as well. And I've been meaning to reach out to him. I feel like his name was Griffin or Griffith. I'm so sorry. Um, but
Ricky, let me ask you this question. What was the campus like in terms of what buildings were there by the time you got there in 12, you were there in the early teens, the 20 teens?
a lot of the ones that were named, Debevoise, Chase, the library. Um, it's been a while. I'm sorry. I don't remember them all. Fun fact though, I graduated in 2012. The first time I returned back on campus was 2022. 10 years later,
Years. Wow.
later, solely to watch Fito graduate. Fito graduate, and the touching thing about Fito, and I don't want to embarrass you, Fito. So my apologies in advance. He mentioned how he worked under me and one of my law partners, Charles Scott. You know, Fito was he was shy and nervous, and so one of his jobs he had to pick up the phone and talk to some of our clients, and sometimes he didn't do that in the best way. He didn't communicate the best. Let's just put it that way. Some of our clients maybe had some, complaints here and there. Um, but he got better at it. He got better at it. And so for him to start off that way, make it to Vermont Law School and graduate as the class speaker, I mean, it just gave me goosebumps watching him. And it just shows me how, you definitely should not judge a book by its cover. We should all be given equal opportunity, and you just never know what one can do with it. We don't have the time here, but I just happen to know a lot about Fito's background, and he has a powerful testimony, you know. But but yeah, so last time I was on campus was 2022. I don't remember the name of all the buildings. I
Okay.
did I did get to I lived right across the street. And my landlords, to this day, I'm still in touch with them. I send her a happy birthday text message every year. And while I was in town, I was able to meet up with them and take a picture with them as well. They're the Mannings, so I don't expect them to be in this conversation we're having in this event, but some people, those who are here may know of them.
Ricky, can I ask you one last question
Yes.
before we jump to the next topic? Is how has going to Vermont Law School shaped your career or your life after VLS?
So I'm extremely grateful for Vermont Law School because now, as a husband and father of three, um, the things I'm able to do for my family, that's always been one of my goals as a child of an immigrant. I just want to be able to take care of my family, provide for my family, give back to others, and so, um, I like to give back to organizations, my law school, my churches. And I definitely like to take care of my family and be able to provide them with a particular lifestyle. I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't an attorney, and I wouldn't be an attorney if it wasn't for Vermont law. So when I think of that question, I can't help but just go there. Vermont law also helped me get out of my shell a little bit. I remember getting to Soro and meeting with different individuals and for the first time hearing vegan, you know, vegan, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, I was hearing the phrase tree hugger. What's a tree hugger? I don't know what these things are, guys. But like Lori was mentioning, being able to have conversations, we could agree to disagree. That's okay. It's not that, you know what I mean? We could have things that we don't agree on, but still, have a close friendship or just dialogue. And believe it or not, now I've been pescatarian for almost 7 years now, so the terms that were just so foreign and felt weird, dare I say I've adopted some. So yeah. Well, we're almost at the hour mark, and I
Rick,
yes, go ahead.
if I could,
Yes.
I think we would be remiss. We mentioned him early on in the program, not to mention the name of the first African American student who graduated from Vermont. His name was Walter Turner, and he was the class of 78.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that, Edna. Um, and so yeah, we now want to open it up for Q&A. I do see the chat box has a lot of activity. So I'm just reading some of the comments here. Um, yes, make your plans now to attend Alumni Weekend in Soro, June 26th to June 28th. Man, my middle son's birthday is June 28th. That's the first time I have heard Soro in forever. Feel free to raise your hand and you can ask your question live.
Rick, can we talk about, and maybe Lori and you guys can talk about how much you think your experience at VLS, beyond being able to get your law degree, has benefited you in your career?
I would say immensely. Um, like I said, I just by virtue of the size of the classes and being exposed to people who are coming at this from a way that I never even would imagine prior to going to law school. People who had a take on things that, a perspective that I would never have known. has helped me be able to navigate situations, diffuse situations, and like I was saying earlier, listening and just like appreciate that there is a perspective different than mine out there. So if we're trying to get a case settled, um, you know, I became far more comfortable sitting down with people who are coming at what would appear to be from left field, for somebody sitting in my shoes. Okay, let's sit down. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's talk about it. I'm not going for the head fakes. I know what my purpose is. I'm going to hear you, but you know what? I'm also going to demand respect that you listen to me as well. We're going to be professional about this. It just, I guess I would say being exposed to different mindsets and different points of view, um, in a way helped me become grounded. It seems counterintuitive, I guess, but I don't, I don't know how else to say it because that's kind of how I feel.
Can I say something, Rick?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Shout out to Dee McCormick. She asked a question. The question is, what advice could we give to our current students of color in law in graduate school? That's a very long name. In the current climate. I'm going to give a kind of a general roundabout answer to that. And I kind of wrote this down, and I wrote, Dr. King reminded us that institutions don't change themselves. It's the people inside. And I know at VLS, one of the things that we want to do is be like world changers, right? Some of the encouraging things, not only to the students but also to the faculty, is stay encouraged, right? Things are going to get better. You may seem like it's the toughest thing to be in law school or to be in Vermont, or whatever it may be. Just stay encouraged. Ask their hard questions. Step into leadership roles, even when it's uncomfortable. I don't think it was comfortable for me to be on a environmental journal. It was not. It was not comfortable for me to be the class speaker. It was not comfortable for me to be a student trustee. So step into those leadership roles, even when it's uncomfortable. And then the last thing is to reinforce that progress is collective, and it's ongoing, and which means have hard conversations together, and stick together as a group. Whether it's finding people to study with, whether it's finding a mentor on campus or off campus, whether it's connecting with the community at large, or it's finding something that empowers you to continue in law. And so that would be my piece of advice. I don't know what you all would have.
I would say, I would add on to, I think that's beautiful. I would add on to that, importantly, be kind to yourself, be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself. If you're not growing and learning, you're being bombarded with a lot of information, both in terms of with your studies and in the outside world. It's a lot. And no one has all those answers. So give yourself room to grow and be kind with yourself as you're growing. Remember that, like I was saying earlier, we have to get out of our comfort zone, like Fito just said. But just remember that you're not expected to fix anything. It is not your job to educate everybody. So be easy with yourself, but also really do give yourself room to learn and grow, because if you're not learning and growing, I don't think we're doing it right. And no growth happens if we stay comfortable. If you're working out, you get stronger and faster and whatever when you push yourself just outside your limit every now and then. All growth takes place outside the comfort zone. Be kind to yourself, though.
And if I can add, and some people may frown at what I'm about to say, is don't be afraid to take a break, don't be afraid to take a break and say, wait a minute, I need to step back for a minute, analyze where I am, take an inventory, and then maybe go back to whether it's law school or medical school or any type of graduate school. Don't be afraid to say, wait a minute, I rushed into this too quickly. I'm not ready. Let me step back and prepare myself and then come back and pick it up and keep going. Don't give up, but you may need to take a break. Don't be afraid to take a break.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Being open-minded, challenging yourself, doing something uncomfortable, like Fito said, like Lori said, give yourself grace, give yourself grace. And like Edna's saying, don't be afraid to take a break, you know. I'm reading some of the comments here. Chauncey asked, he may have missed this, but what are the numbers now? So I'm just throwing that out there in case Brock or Pierrette may know the answer to that, and maybe they could put it in the chat. Chauncey asked, well, what are the numbers now? I'm thinking he's asking what are the numbers of African American students in Vermont Law School now. I see about 30, okay, about 30%. Scott Cameron said about 30% of our students are students of color. Okay, so 30%. S. Curry is saying hello from Vancouver, Canada. Wow, amazing. Dave JD class of 92 did ask for us if we could talk about one of the most memorable experiences in the classroom or out of the classroom. Memorable experiences. I think we
I can think of one where it was meaningful to me, and that was property class. It was Professor Loader, and I thought it was wonderful. We were talking about housing discrimination, and in terms of like, if it's my property, I can determine what to do with it, including who gets to live here. And she played a clip from, I don't know, 2020, whatever, one of those shows where they sent testers out, and black tester and a white tester, you all know the story, and the same property, same person. And invariably the white tester was welcome. The black tester was told the rent was like more, the presentation was cold, there was stern finger wagging, there was, whatever, or it just wasn't available. And I can remember sitting there going, I know this world. I know what that's like. And looking around and seeing a lot of my classmates just weren't getting it. And I want to be clear, it's not that they were adverse to it. It's not that the comments and the way it was affecting them, it was a whole different realm. It was just a whole different realm. And we had a really good discussion. She led a very good discussion about that. And it was validating in a not great kind of way, because that wasn't a great thing to see, but it was validating. And it was like, wow, this is why we're studying this. This is not that everybody's going to go into real estate or whatever, but it was an important dimension of the world that we didn't always get in our classes. So I would also say plug and shout out to Professor Loader, but also if there are any professors watching this, please think beyond the box. Please think beyond, use those real world examples. Because this is not the time to put the blinders on, to bury the head. We need this next generation of the keepers of the system to come out engaged and prepared.
If I can, just a lighter topic. I just remember I went to law school during COVID, and coming back to campus after COVID, and even during the breakout of the pandemic, just how supportive the deans and faculty were from you know, having different town halls to check up on us, whether it was professors who now had a little more extra time on their hands, just having extra sessions with students, even more than they would in person, just to see the community come together during such a isolating time. I thought that was really cool. And I think, just like we talked about earlier, just coming together as a group, and that was really impactful, and that was a very memorable time.
Awesome. Awesome. Edna, I'm reading the chats and you have a couple shout outs. So I just want to, just in case you don't see them all, I want to make sure you're at least here. Chauncey said, Edna, you look great.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, um, Scott Cameron said, I'm enjoying the conversation. Edna, it's good to see you. Okay. Beverly Griffin Dunn said, Edna,
Yep,
so nice to hear your memories, and she also
yep.
said, and Chauncey, nice to know you're on here, you
Well,
know.
I want to tell this story. It really has nothing to do with any faculty member. When we were there, the first semester, at the end of the first semester after exams were over, grades were not posted. You were handed your grade in an envelope. And I remember being worried that I wasn't going to pass, that I would be finished my first semester. And I took the envelope, went into the ladies' room into a stall to open it because I didn't want to see anybody to see me cry if I had failed my courses. So it's an interesting experience. And I guess part of that was because I was an older student and I was concerned that I wasn't, gonna pass the my courses. But it's, strange things that you do in a situation like that is to go hide in the ladies' room. But I passed, and so obviously I did okay because I'm still here and I have a law license. So something must have been okay.
And
But I also remember Stephanie Wilbanks taught tax, and I took her course. And she called you in individually to go over your exam grade. And I was sweating because I just knew I hadn't done well on her tax course. And I did very well, so I was very relieved. But those kind of things you remember, and they bother you somewhat. But it's interesting that when you worry that you may not have done well, it turns out that you did okay. So don't let those negative things drag you down. Turn them into positives whenever you can.
awesome. Mary Lou Reyes said, Edna, I hope to see you at my next residency in June. Edna, you got to tell us your secret because Lori, Fito, and I are not getting any shout outs. Oh,
I have no idea.
Ricky, if I may,
A fan
uh,
club.
Ricky, if I may, Jerry
Edward.
Edwards said, any thoughts? So he's class of 2005. Any thoughts on what you would do? What would you like to see from the VGLS alumni of color to support current VGLS students?
VLGS. Any thoughts on what you would like to see from VLGS alumni of color to support the current students at VLGS? You graduated most recently, Fito. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say just support BOSA, stay in connect with BOSA. I know BOSA usually has a lot of meetings and they're looking for things to do. They're looking to encourage the students. I think yeah, just stay in connect with BOSA. I think that was my biggest thing is I wanted to know who some of the graduates were, whether there's a list we can come out with, whether there's a group me or a teams or something, a group chat or something that they could come up with. That would be cool.
And speaking of just staying in connection, this is actually a question I was going to ask earlier. I already know Fito's answer because he married his classmate. But I was going to ask Edna and Lori, do you guys stay in contact with anybody you went to law school with? I think I know the answer to for Edna now as I'm reading all the chats. So um but
I,
you guys could answer Edna and Lori both.
I actually do, and in fact, I just had dinner with one of the people who's in the chat, Michael, and another classmate, Karen. We just had dinner Friday night, and I stay in touch with other members of my class, one of whom currently lives in uh oh, where is she living right now? I can't remember, but I stay in touch with her. So yes, I stay in contact with members of my class. Um, we stay connected. Some of us stay connected.
What about you, Lori?
I'm horrible about stuff like that. I will say that when I come back for alumni reunion, I reconnect. And with a lot of them, it's almost like we hit pause on the conversation until we're back at VLS, and then it continues again. Then we hit pause and we're back, and it continues again. So I am not the best with, it's one of my not secret powers. Um, I got to get better at that, but I do catch up with folks when I'm there. I have several people in my phone that we intermittently stay in touch, but nothing like the fan club Edna's got going on here.
Well, I hope one of the people in your phone, I hope, is Diane Henkels. If not, maybe she will be.
Ah, Diane.
She says, I have been listening and appreciate this sharing. I will share that I remember Lori Anthony, my classmate, engaging in some event. I don't recall the exact event, though it did have to do with civil rights, and it was third year of school. Lori knocked it out of the park with her talk. It was informative and inspirational, and it seemed effortless for her.
You know
Wow.
what? It was the MLK Day presentation, and we had Judge Carter from the Brown versus Board of Education case, and he came to speak, and I was like, the opening act for his talk. I was not the main event, but thank you, Diane.
That's
Very
awesome.
nice of you.
That's awesome.
I do remember that. Wow.
I do want to read this other comment here from Michael. Having had the privilege of graduating with Edna in the class of 1983, I could say that perhaps since she was a bit older and wiser, Edna was often viewed as being our class mother. She, together with a few others, were and continue to be the heartbeat of our class. It is indeed a privilege to be a part of VLS and this panel experience. We are all blessed.
Michael was one of the people I had dinner with the other night.
Ah, awesome. 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 There's a question that was posted here in the Q&A section, and I'll read it for you three just to give your thoughts on it. It's from an anonymous attendee. And this person says, thank you so much for this wonderful event this evening. Also, thank you for the pioneering actions you all have contributed to society and VLGS community. Do you all find it hypocritical that a nation who sought to oppose and sabotage Dr. King and the works of others on the same mission, and then is quick to paint him as a beloved hero who was loved by his countrymen and its governmental structure? Do you all see it as hypocrisy or a nation that has gone under immense change?
I would say it's a nation that has gone under immense change. We're not perfect, but I think we always move in a positive way for our future. I think Dr. King, he loved America so much that he challenged it, and so when you challenge something, there's going to be opposers on both ends, and anytime you want change, it's not gonna look pretty, and so I think during his life, it didn't always look pretty because everyone didn't like what he was doing. He didn't want the country to stay the way it was, and he loved it so much that he wanted to change. And so I think the answer to that question is I think our country has changed, and they acknowledge who he is and what he's done for our country. And so that would be my response to that. That was a great question.
What about you, Lori? What are your thoughts?
I think I was just trying to process it a little bit more. I think, dependent context is everything. Depending on the context, both could be true. Both of those, both of the either or, it may not be either or depending on the context. So I just want to put that out there. Having said that, I agree with what Fito said. Dissent is the highest form of patriotism.
Mm.
So depending on, again, context, in that question, it sounds like the person is asking about the use of Dr. King, his legacy, his words, his speeches, as being hypocrisy or a sign of progress. And I think we have made progress. I don't see how that can be denied. So yeah, I think there's always going to be some growing pains. But I think maybe you may have said it, Ricky. Somebody said it earlier. Dr. King, or maybe it's Fito. Dr. King wasn't just for Black people. Dr. King was for everyone.
Right,
And
right.
so, if you're asking me that question just in a vacuum, I would say it's progress.
Agreed. I don't know if you had any thoughts, Edna.
My only thought would be, and this may sound a little simplistic when I say this, change is never easy. Period. Never.
Yeah, so true. There's 9 minutes left before we're supposed to end. I do want to just make a point to share that in the group chat, Brock, because somebody asked a question about alumni and current VLGS students of color and just connecting and, how can we
Oh,
stay in
pulse,
touch?
yeah.
Yes, and so Brock said that BOSA occasionally runs their own mentor program, and we have a general mentor program through our partnership with the Legal Mentor Network, and there's a link there in the chat. And he says our students always want alumni mentors, especially alumni of color. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Any final thoughts, closing thoughts, final questions?
Thanks for attending, Diane. I see you. Thanks for the kind words too.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. But I have to say, it was, even though it's been virtual, it's been great meeting the three of you and having a chance to talk with you from the different eras of when you came through VLS. It's been interesting to hear, and it's been interesting to see how, and I'm sorry, I can't get that VLGS out of my mouth very well, how VLS has grown and expanded and how much it offers to different communities. And so I'm proud to say I am a proud VLS graduate.
Likewise, I agree. It makes me excited for the future too. You know, I definitely think there's going to be a statue of VP Shirley Jefferson somewhere. Okay.
There
I'm
should be.
still voting for it, I may even help pay for it, you know.
Hey,
That's how much she means to
Get
me.
that checkbook out, Ricky.
Um, any other final thoughts, Lori, Fito?
yeah, I would say thank you all for joining, and I think this is a wonderful group. I think it's really cool to see
Oh,
the
there she
progress.
is.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the progress, and it's also cool to see how much you all have put in just for just for people like me, the later generations, for VGLS now. And I would say let's continue to stay connected.
Agreed.
Oh, I think
Up, Dean
Oh,
she
Jefferson
is.
has her hand up.
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we
ma'am.
and
can.
Look, I
Um,
wasn't gonna say anything. I swear I wasn't gonna say anything. But I got about 40, 50. I don't know how long I've been associated with that school, but I got about so many memories going through my head. You are my hero. I love you so. I
I
do.
I love you too, Shirley. I love you a lot. I love you. I love you. I love you.
And Lori, likewise. You were there. I wasn't there, but after coming back to the law school, and you helped me with so many projects. Ricky, Fito, y'all know y'all in my heart. And I just want to say one thing. I'm not taking this day for granted and taking this program for granted. And I say that because I've been talking to a lot of other folks at other law schools. They're not able to do this because of what's happening in this country now. They used to have programs like this, and now they don't. I'm so happy. We are so blessed. And thank you, Vermont Law School and Vermont Law and Grad School, for us for allowing us and having the courage to put on a program like this. And thank you, Brock. This is a blessing. We that little law school still continue to fight and hold a lot of things close to their heart and being the gatekeeper for so many people. And I just want to say thank you to all of you all. Thank you to the alumni. Thank you to Dean Beth McCormick and Dean Bromberg. Thank you to our faculty and staff, the town of South Royalton. I just feel real good, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to sleep tonight because I just have so much energy from all of y'all. There's so much in my head of all of these things and being blessed. So thank you. I'm shutting up because y'all got to go, but let everybody stay in touch. Love you all.
Amen.
Love you, Shirley.
Dean Jefferson. We could hear you talk all day, Dean Jefferson. We appreciate you making an appearance. Thank you so much for your contributions and all you've done for all of us. Thank you again, Brock and Pierrette. Uh,
Yep.
yes.
Jerry
Thank
Edwards.
you, Brock and Perrette.
Shout out to Jerry Edwards, who gave me a shout out, my only shout out, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it. Thank you, Jerry. Ricky, you are the host with the most. Well done. It's my first time moderating a
And
panel.
it won't be your last.
That's right. You did a great job.
It's not, I appreciate it. And it's not lost on me that the first time I'm moderating a panel is with VLS, So again, VLS continues to just carve moments in my heart, So to sit here at a panel with all of you and the connection, whether the Fito connection, but then learning about Edna and Lori, and Dean Jefferson blessing us with, her presence as well. I'm grateful, eternally grateful. And then the fact that we're even doing it on this day. Dean Jefferson used to tell us stories of how she marched with Dr. King, powerful. And so the fact that, like Dean Jefferson said, VLS even put this program on today and they're not afraid to do it, I applaud my alma mater. I'm so proud. I'm so grateful. All right.
Brock, are we good?
You are good. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I've been recording this session, and I will send out a email with the recording when it's posted, and also a survey for you to give us feedback. And this is give it up one more time for our amazing panelists, Ricky, Lori, Fito, and Edna. It is so lovely to hear all your wisdom, and I really appreciate you taking some time on Dr. King's Day to share about your experiences. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night and enjoy the national championship. I know you'll be watching it closely, Fito.
Yep, it'll be on soon. Thanks, Brock.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.